Is that an Izod shirt you got going on over there with the little alligator?
Proud sponsor of Vineyard Vines.
Oh, okay. There you go. I love it. All right. Well, anyway, give me your biggest aha coming out of Mega Camp.
Oh gosh. It was a lot of overload. I went to the CEO mastermind on Monday, and I don't think I ever fully recovered from that.
Yep.
But I think the biggest thing I came out of it looking at was I've got this note up on my board that just says systems need to be reevaluated and restructured, and I thought to myself, I think now is the time to start asking myself a bunch of questions, starting with one that he kept on saying, "Who are you?" Right? He said that a ton on Monday, and I think it's really good and healthy to take a good look at that frequently. And so I that's the big question on my board right now. And from there, reevaluate systems. Big conversation with Patty was, how do we get 10 people into 70 production? Because she kept on hearing that, and that's all I've heard about ever since then. So it's building systems now.
You know, what's interesting is some years we go to a family reunion or mega camp, and it's a lot of skills-based stuff. Like you'll hear people get on stage say, here's how to do an open house on steroids, or here's this cool marketing thing that I'm doing in social media that's created all these things. This year, I didn't hear a lot of skills-based stuff, and that doesn't mean it's not important. It was really focused on mindset.
Yeah.
And mindset is probably not that skills are not important. And we certainly talk on here about going into a skills-based market, but mindset's going to be the secret sauce of winning going forward. And, in the CEO mastermind, he talked about the past, present, and future. And he said, we like to find certainty in our world. And he said, well, the past is certainly certain, and the present is actually certain, but the future is always uncertain. And he says, in the way you navigate that is with predictability and probability.
Yep.
And it reminded me, I don't know if we've talked about it on this call, but there's a book called Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke, Annie Duke was a brilliant woman growing up, brilliant mind going through college, top of her class, but her brother was in a poker league. So she kind of got pulled into this poker league, and she was so successful at poker. She made so much money in poker, she never went into the working world, if you will, to the tune she's won the World Series of Poker a couple of times. But she wrote this book where she took the principles of poker and applied them to business. So for instance, without going too far down a wormhole here, you could have a pair of aces and still lose the hand, but the probability of you winning is high. And so people that play poker play the game on probability. And you think about that in our world, we play the game on probability too. If I go farm a neighborhood, there's a probability of me having success, but it's not certain. Or if I take out let's say I go sign up for Zillow leads or realtor.com or whatever, there's a probability of success, but it's not certain. And we have to operate on probability to find our way forward. So the question is, what is the probability? What are you doing today that has a high probability of success tomorrow? And how do we find that comfort in that probability in an uncertain world, right? Yeah. And I thought that was a big concept to really get your head wrapped around is, when you're talking about the future and we're talking about uncertainty, and we'll dive into a bunch of numbers and economics here in a second, which there's some uncertain conversations. The question is, how do we live in the probability world? What do we need to do that gives us the highest probability of thriving and winning going forward? And I thought it was just really, really spot on from that point. Probably one of the best mega camps, but I like the mindset stuff, right?
Yeah.
And getting your head framed about how to go win big right now was just perfectly timed.
Yeah, I think you were spot on. As soon as you started talking, I kind of that all that kind of started running through my head. I've got a board just full of notes I just spilled out on, and that was one of the big things I remembered. And then going into mega camp, you know, how do you live by predictability and probability? You got to know the numbers of what you're doing, right? And I remember one of the panelists, and I want to get this wrong because I haven't spilled all my notes up on my board, so it's not in front of me, but they were talking about what they do on social media.
Mhm.
And they said something along the lines of, yeah, I have 70 conversations and I post seven times a week or whatever it was. And somebody quoted it later. They're like, all right, so 70 comments in a week. And I went, no, that was in a day. I mean, you have to just, there isn't this easy button, right? If you want to really succeed in real estate, there's going to be times of pain. There's going to be times of growth, and there's sometimes pain with growth. And so you have to get outside of this comfort zone of, I hear this a lot. Well, I made 20 calls today. Well, that wasn't enough. Like, you can't base your livelihood on those 20 calls alone. You got to throw it down.
Yep. There you go. And it's time on task over time, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's jump. Okay, Rockwall County. Get this window out of the way here. We're looking at 170 active inventory. Last week was 152. I see that as a seasonality slowdown on the inventory. I don't think we're selling more houses. I think the inventory started to come down a little bit. So what do I see in that? I think there's opportunity in that. I think that means people, the ones that are on the market are still very serious. I think there's opportunity to be a listing agent right now. I think there's opportunity to still get people under contract that have kind of been waiting out the competitive market. What do you see in that?
No, absolutely. I think you're right on the seasonality. You've got the back to school, you've got getting kids back in. But until we really hit late September, there's still a good just momentum coming out of the summer. You just hit this little break of 2 weeks. And so you've got to kind of be ready to take it in. And, you know, going into the holiday weekend, this can be kind of a good weekend to be out there. So
Yeah.
if you aren't traveling, don't be sitting around. Find you some open houses. Find you a couple open houses.
Yeah.
Think about Monday. You know, it's there's a lot of opportunity this weekend. The people that are out there, they're pretty serious.
Yeah. And the people that were toying with the idea early summer, those have either bought or stopped with the voyeurism, where now it's serious people looking to do serious business. So if you're finding them, that's really key right now. Okay, Dallas County, 992 inventory came down a little bit. Active option, maybe a little bit down. Pendings are a little bit down, but solds are just holding in a good number, right? Expired listings are back down a little bit, so I see that as a good thing. So that held high. Collin County, we've got 754 active listings, slightly down from where we were, early August. Option contracts 229, which is healthy. Pendings 302, which is healthy. 306 in sales, which is healthy. I mean, expired listings 16, I'll take that. Like, here's what you need to see is these are good numbers. The market's pretty healthy right now. Inventories come down a little bit, but everything else has stayed pretty healthy. If I just jump over to Denton County, which is another big county, inventory down a little bit, sold's pretty healthy, maybe down a little bit. Pendings are certainly down here in Denton County, but active options are holding high. If we run out to the lake, Henderson County's got 70 active listings, which is down from the mid of the summer, which I would expect in Henderson County. Yet active options are holding at 14, pendings are holding at 22, and solds are 21. We did have a low week last week. But typically if we're close, give or take to 25 out of the lake, that's a good week. Expired listings, only 2. I'll take it. What do you see?
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
What do you see?
Oh yeah, no, I'm looking at these pending numbers and I'm starting to go back and looking at them in July. These are great pending numbers for August. We usually see a pretty good tail coming out of July into August, and the numbers look really stable, which is a really big shame for a lot of agents because I think a lot of agents have slept through this. But yeah, just looking at the seasonality of what we're doing, this is turning out to be a really nice August.
Absolutely. And it feels good, even though there feels like we're all watching the news media thinking, hey, we should be worried. We should have anxiety. We should think that the world is changing. And yeah, it's changing, but the numbers are holding. All our metrics are saying the real estate market is good and not acutely great, but good. And I'll take good all day long. There's no yellow or red cautionary tales showing up in these numbers right now at all. So I'll take that all day long. This is an article that popped on Inman, and I find it funny. Gary's saying he's been in the industry 40 years, and the current market is the most confusing he's ever seen. And it's a great market. If you just think about it, we've talked about it for weeks on here, Jim, like days on market, historically low. Prices are still appreciating and going up. Houses are still selling. We haven't seen a drop off yet. You've got these things over here. Inflation going is still up. Interest rates, the Fed announced Friday that they were bumping the Federal Reserve rate. That went up, yet our market's good. Like all these things shouldn't exist, but they do.
And unemployment's
And
good.
unemployment, yeah. So everybody has a job, they have money in the bank, yet the economy is a little uncertain.
Yeah. I think it goes back to what you hear Gary say a lot when he started talking about in the 80s when interest rates were up above 10 and up around 18. And I think back in the 2008, 2012 market, and people still bought homes. And so one of the things that really made me think of was like, you can be in control of all this. Like, it doesn't matter of all the external factors. It just kind of changes the hours you need to work and the numbers you need to hit. But people are still buying homes, and they're buying them in still really high demand. Despite that, and even though showings may be down and everything else, it's like I just said, it's like we got rid of just the tire kickers and we're getting down to just the people that are real serious out there.
Yep.
And they're just going to come in slow droves. So we can't fall asleep with this kind of lull that we feel from time to time, and we can't panic. We have to do what we can control. It goes back to what you were talking about earlier with bringing in predictability and probability. And I've got this one quote up in front of me that says, successful people do what unsuccessful people won't.
Yeah.
And that seems like such a simple thing, but successful people are in the office from 9 to 5.
Well,
Uh,
there might be
and
an article that says Gary Keller has a theory about what a successful agent's day looks like. Tell me about this.
yeah, this has been something I really strive for this year. I'm not big on New Year's resolutions, but this was one of mine. And it goes back to a concept that Gary said long ago. And I feel his pain on this, where he's like, I keep on saying this, and maybe eventually people will listen to me. Uh, but it goes into his miracle morning, right? What are the 5 things you should do before noon? And lead generate is one of those things. You should have your 100, 120, 200 calls done before noon. You should also eat and exercise. You should meditate and pray. You should hug, kiss, and laugh. Uh, I'm missing one of, plan
Yeah.
out the day, right? And so, and all these things should happen before noon. 1,000%. Like, I mean,
You know,
if you look back through the history of just outside of real estate, you see the exact same thing. And success breeds success. Look for the clues.
he even makes a case that says, who cares what happens in the afternoon in a way?
Yeah.
Like you control your morning and you nail your morning. The afternoon is what the afternoon is. And he's saying successful people understand and know this. And, there's strategies to that, but at the end of the day, it's discipline.
Yep.
It's getting up, going to work, getting all your big rocks done, eat the frog, the one thing. All these books just talk about getting it all done before noon. And he said for top performing agents, the most critical hours of the workday are from when they wake up to roughly noon. And with that time, they should focus largely on lead generation and all the other activities that are most likely to result in new buyers and sellers. Boom. So then the question is, the agent that shows up at 10 o'clock and starts their day, they're already putting themselves at a disadvantage. The question is how do you control that first half of your day? You can do that. You'll find your way to success. And it's get up and show up. The interesting thing, Jim, there's a harsh reality that's before us. The harsh reality is we are actually experiencing what I would think to say that there's going to be some agents getting out of the business here in the near future. And as a broker, that could seem like a bad thing. But you think about it, the ones that are going to get up and show up, they're going to be the ones that are going to go out and sell the houses. The ones that are struggling to do that are probably the ones that are going to get out of the business. And the sad part is there's probably some good agents that are just not in their discipline to do what's necessary to go forward, that are going to fall victim. And we hope not in our world, right? Like, because we're here talking about it. Hopefully you're hearing the message, right? But the other side of that coin, Jim, is the ones that do are going to pick up all the market share from the ones that don't.
Absolutely.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. So
Yeah.
I find it just really powerful.
Yeah, one way or the other, you're going to get motivated and do the work. The question is, are you going to get motivated and do the work when you're the boss and you can control your income? Or are you going to get out of the business and do it for somebody else as the boss and have a very limited ceiling as your income?
Yeah, 100%. So I'm almost laughing at this. So, if the Federal Reserve's got to just be irritated. They keep moving rates up, but the interest rates for home loans doesn't really change that much, right?
No.
So is it pulling down inflation? Really slow, right? But so if you're not aware, the Fed upped the rate on Friday, but I bet you the housing market, those rates are the same today as they were on Friday. You're still getting a good interest rate.
Yeah. And they said, yeah, we'll probably do it again in September. And, they just, I don't know, Brett, I've got all sorts of opinions on it that I won't get into. And it's there's a lot of silliness.
It is, but regardless, I think this goes back to this one.
Yeah.
It's the most confusing. It doesn't make sense. Right? All right. Tell me about this. You sent me this.
Yeah. I'll be honest, it was kind of not a great selling point on this. It was kind of a boring read until you kind of got to the bottom of this article. And it starts talking about what Open Door has done this year. And it's very reminiscent of what Zillow Offers did last year. Zillow Offers last year got stuck with 30,000 homes, if I remember right, somewhere around there. So Open Door, 17,000 homes in its portfolio as of June 30th. And what happened once those June interest rates went up? The growth stopped. And that's what Open Door really needs to happen, is growth to continue at a really good rate. And if you watch Open Door, they're pretty cash strapped. They keep on giving away equity to get more money in. But there's a lot of danger in that number right there. I think other institutional buyers would buy that up. But it's something to watch a lot of these institutional buyers and what they're doing. I think you have a lot of them that can do what you see other corporations doing right now in doing build to rent homes and just amassing a huge portfolio. But you have to be built like that, your corporate structure. And it's not just as easy just to flip the switch and say, all right, we're going rentals. Maybe on some, but 17,000 is a lot. OfferPad had some, but it was 3,500 nationwide. I don't think that's anything to really scoff at. But yeah, it's and I don't think 2023 is going to help them at all. I think Gary kind of mentioned, I don't think we take a dive down on prices, but I don't know that we go up a lot. I don't think we necessarily keep up with inflation. And so this is going to hurt.
Yeah. I think this statement here, we said Brian Baird, chairman and CEO of OPED, said it's important to be decisive and be proactive with owned inventory during a quickly changing market such as the current one. I think this, I'm going to read this a little bit different.
Yeah.
Is listing agents. It's important to be decisive and proactive with active inventory during a quickly changing market such as the current one.
Mm-hmm.
We should be very much hip to hip, arm in arm with our sellers around pricing and not necessarily chasing the market, but competing in the market. And showing up to this kind of call and getting the data and the conversations we're talking about on here should equip you or arm you with those conversations, right?
Yeah, you should be looking at a little SWOT analysis about once a week, how we're showing some competitors, what went under contract, what new came up that we care about. And so you can give them really precise information and let them make educated decisions.
Yeah. This contradicts what we've been saying. Dallas-Fort Worth, only U.S. market where home prices sales dropped. Home sale prices dropped last month. What do you make of that?
Well, it does mention that the month before we had the highest in the nation. And I don't think it's healthy to continually be that high. And so averages average out. That is one of the most simplistic just thoughts you can have. And so if you have this month where you're just out of orbit, the next month you're probably going to come down a bit, but it's also comparing year over year. And so if you go back and go say, oh yeah, we had this great price jump in July of 2021. Well, you had two things working against you. You had a huge price jump in July. Well, you had your huge price jump in June. Having an article written about just 1 month of a random stat, it's not newsworthy at all. It's kind of reckless.
Yeah.
Write the article in about 3 or 4 months when you have some good data, and if it does this on a consistent basis.
You know, the irony of this article, home prices typically always come down a little bit at the end of the summer.
Yeah.
If they didn't sell in the heat of the summer, those prices come down. If you track median sales price over time, it certainly goes up and down over the course of a year. And that's not really news, that's history.
Yeah.
We'll leave it there.
And a 2% drop isn't anything. I mean,
so they're developing lots in Willow Bend, 1.6 million plus homes. Interesting. They are 2,300 build for rent units. Jim, they should be paying us royalty for how smart we are. We've been talking about this for a year. I think there's going to be people that are developing single family rental units over there'll be entire neighborhoods being built that'll never go to the market and never go to the sale market. Get ready. Next thing was DFW developers blaze new trails looking for industrial building sites. We keep talking about this, like land and big warehousing is a big deal in the future. And if you think about this is in response to retail being down, meaning the consumer shift to buying things online creates a shift for the need for warehousing and a shift away from big box retailer, right?
Yep.
And then Amazon obviously leads the market here, but their speed to delivery, we're becoming like, if you order food on DoorDash or whatever, like you have an expectation that's going to show up at your house in 30 minutes, right?
Yeah.
If you order something online, what's your expectation of how fast it's going to get to you? Right? So the need for those warehouses in central locations is just becoming more and more, with North Texas being a hub for that.
Yeah, and that 175 corridor is really going to change over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yep. Which I think Henderson County will very much benefit from that. I think Kaufman County will very much benefit from that. I think Hunt County will benefit from that. Builders love us again. You know, they're throwing more money at us again. And they're throwing more money to the consumer they're taking smaller margins to get product moving. So not necessarily a bad idea. I think in the past, the builder was what the builder was. There wasn't a whole lot of negotiating. I think that's going to change in the future. I think you'll have a little more negotiating points when dealing with new construction. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I agree on that. One of the things I really looked at on there and kind of what they were talking about with Toll Brothers, and it's really with any builder out there, is there's such that they're, and it goes to what you were saying a little bit ago, they're very much in indirect sales, right? Not entirely, but for the most part. And one of the great things I think it really tells us is it takes work to really maintain a sales forecast, because that's what they're really talking about, is their sales forecast went down or they're not going to meet it. And so you really have to be out there pounding the pavement in order for you personally to keep your sales forecast up, right? Yep. Gary said, do the things that matter and eliminate everything else. And that's what that really goes toward.
There you go. And remember, they're playing probability too.
Yeah.
So if I throw an incentive, what's the probability that'll cause me to sell more houses? Right?
Yeah, that's kind of what they have going for them.
There you go. Well, everybody make fun of Erika. She couldn't make the call today. Actually not. She has a family situation. Anyway, I'll let her share or news, but all's good, no concerns, just Jim and I rock it as always. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Have a good one.